6:21. I am Paul Harris, filling in for McGraw today with
Good
Kelly
to have you
Jackson.
here, by the way.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure being back here on the 16th floor of the University Tower at the First Rule Film and Broadcast Center in the University Tower, broadcasting live online at stltoday.com and via ktrs.com, and worldwide via the KTRS app, and of course the century-old technology over your radio.
That old-fashioned thing.
Which is still how 98.5% of our listeners listen to the show on the Big 550 KTRS. We were talking earlier about the Super Bowl weekend coming up and people making their plans, and that's the reason McGraw is not here. There's a lot of hype, of course, about the ads that will run during the Super Bowl, and a lot of them are already online. I refuse to watch any of the ads because I like to watch the game and be surprised by them.
Oh, man, Paul.
Yeah.
I just watched like 10 of them yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah.
Don't tell me what it is, but is there one that caught your eye and made you say, oh, this is one to look forward to?
Oh, yes. Being the dog lover that I am.
Yeah.
Part 2 of the AV commercial. Oh, with the puppy?
Okay. You know, there are also the companies that make a big deal about how our ad has been banned from the Super Bowl because they purposely made commercials that either have curse words in them or subject matter that they know is not going to be aired.
Of course, yes.
Some of them even are big advertisers. There's one that Anheuser-Busch has, and GoDaddy has one.
I saw that
You
one,
know,
too.
they put those online and say, the banned commercial.
Yeah,
which, of course,
and then it gets more play than the other ones that actually do air.
It's clickbait. That's all of it. All it is. But I do want to play one for you because it's not really a commercial. It's a public service announcement. You know, the NFL this year, 2014 was not a good year for the NFL in terms of public relations. And one of the biggest problems they had, of course, was the Ray Rice story. Plus several other players in the NFL were involved in domestic violence matters. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, you had Josh McNary of the Colts, who wasn't allowed to play in the AFC Championship game because he was charged with rape. And this is an ongoing problem in the National Football League, and one that they have been trying to address. They've been running these no more PSAs during the games, usually right at halftime of the Fox and NBC and CBS and ESPN broadcasts. And they have one that is going to air this Sunday, which essentially shows a camera moving through a house. The house is in disarray. You don't see any people. You just see the camera moving through the house, and there's clothing on the floor, and there's stuff knocked over in the kitchen and on the sink, and obviously something has gone on there, some sort of domestic dispute. Here is the audio that plays while you're seeing the camera moving through the house.
911, operator 901. Where's the emergency?
127 Brymere.
Okay, what's going on there?
I'd like to order a pizza for delivery.
Ma'am, you've reached 911. This is an emergency line.
Large with half pepperoni, half mushroom.
You know you've called 911. This is an
Do
emergency
you
line.
know how long it'll be?
Okay, ma'am, is everything okay over there? Do you have an emergency or not?
Yes.
And you're unable to talk because...
Right.
Okay, is there someone in the room with you? Just say yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, it looks like I have an officer about a mile from your location. Are there any weapons in your house?
No.
Can you stay on the phone with me?
No. See you soon. Thank you.
And then there's a graphic that comes up that talks about, no more, contact this number if you, whatever. It's very effective. Hearing that is very effective.
It is. It almost made my heart beat, really.
That's why I played it this morning, is because it got to me, too. But I think there's a problem here in that it seems like all the attention is to make victims more aware that they should have a voice, and not enough attention paid on teaching men not to beat women.
That is a good point, Paul.
Although, as comedian Bill Burr points out, it's not like a guy who is prone to that is going to see the PSA and go, oh,
right.
I didn't know I wasn't supposed to beat women.
Exactly.
I'm glad I learned that in between McDonald's commercials.
Yes. And, I think, seriously, half, maybe it's 50-50 or 75-25. If there's a woman who is watching that, who will give her the courage to come forward and be able to get help for herself. And if that is effective to reach that audience, then I think they've done their job.
I agree with you that it can be a good thing, but I think that the problem is bigger than that. I think the problem is on the other side here, particularly when we're talking about the domestic violence problem in the NFL. Yes, Janae Rice is still the battered woman who wants to stay with Ray Rice, but how about addressing the Ray Rices of the world? This is not how you treat anybody, particularly a woman who you may love or claim to love. When you're on the field, yes, you're paid to pound people, pound men on the field. But you have to be able to make that separation. You have to understand that the sideline is the line you can't cross with that violence.
If you had maybe you could do another, on the totally opposite end of the spectrum, have former abusers who are on there, and talking about their past experience with domestic violence. You can just I can produce it myself. Just have simply done, and have them coming forward on camera, looking at the camera. I think that's just as effective.
I agree. One other NFL-related story this morning. There is a new study out about the effects of all the violence on the field on the men who play the game. Study that was published this week in the medical journal Neurology by some researchers at Boston University School of Medicine. They did tests on 42 former NFL players in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, all of whom have been experiencing some sort of cognitive brain problems in the last 6 months. Half of those players started playing tackle football before age 12. The other half started at 12 or older. And they did all sorts of mental tests on these guys and found that the ones who started playing before 12 performed significantly worse on every test measure after accounting for the total number of years of football played and the age of the players when they took the tests and everything. They say the players who started when they were under 12 years old had significantly more mental problems because of all the brain damage that they had endured. And at the same time, the NFL is ramping up its efforts to teach parents about on-field safety, because that's another thing. After all of those years of lying about what was causing concussions and CTE and other traumatic brain injuries in their players, they are finally trying to do something about it, and they've got a big push on to moms across the country, because it's moms who usually make the decision about whether their sons will play football. But there's a big battle about whether we should be allowing kids under 12 to play tackle football anymore.
That's so young.
Do you know that
they're
in some
still developing at that age.
In some leagues, they start at 5.
That's just ridiculous.
If you saw 2 5-year-olds playing tackle in your yard, you would break them up. But
whatever happened to flag football?
That's what they should be playing.
Yes.
At 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are also new studies out, one from Bloomberg that says half of Americans do not want their sons to play football, and another one by Robert Morris University says half the people said that boys should not be allowed to play tackle football until they get to high school. That's well past 12. Now we're talking 14 years old before they should be allowed to tackle. So all of this is coming into play on the same weekend as the NFL's biggest game of the year, and there'll be a lot more talk about it, particularly, I think, after that PSA airs on Sunday. 6:29 at the Big 550 KT.